Hey, I'm Janaina. Thanks for joining me today to hear about the new updates to our crawl over crawl report. On the menu for today, we'll take a quick look at what is a crawl over crawl report, how do you go about launching a crawl over crawl, what exactly is new, and how you can take advantage of some of the updates. So this type of report gives you the opportunity to compare two different crawls and showcases crawl developments over time. You can compare the results of two different crawls within the same project. This is pretty essential when you're tracking changes over time or when you're comparing different versions of the same site. Let's say, for example, differences between production and staging, mobile versus desktop, different regions, or when tracking the impact of any corrections and changes that you've made to the site. So how do we launch a crawl over crawl report? You can manually push a crawl over crawl between two existing reports. Start by selecting running crawl over crawl on the project level, then select the two crawl profiles you'd like to compare. Remember, the scope of each crawl should be the same in order to run a comparison, meaning they have the same start URL, subdomains, and same depth. In the case that you see an error message when trying to launch the crawl comparison, this means Oncrawl can't determine how to compare the sites. So go ahead and reach out to us through the chat button at the bottom right corner of the screen and we'll look into it for you. To have the report automatically created after every crawl, go into your settings for the specific crawl and make sure you have the crawl over crawl report ticked off here. Now let's take a look at what's new. This update includes a dedicated report to monitor core web vital metrics following our release from this past summer, added graphs in the existing report for internal linking, which highlights page group comparisons by average in rank, by average in link, average depth, and comparison by average outlinks. You're also now able to compare page titles, header tags, meta description, and custom fields directly in the Data Explorer, and the ability to apply a segmentation a little more easily within the reports. So let's take a closer look. So now we're going to take a closer look at some of these new updates. Once we jump inside of the crawl over crawl report within the project, we can now see we have access to selecting different segmentations that would be available within the reporting here. This is something that we didn't have access to in the older version of the crawl over crawl report. If we jump over to what that used to look like, we can see we didn't have the segmentation options available here. You had to select your segmentation in advance and then head over to the crawl over crawl. So now with this new update, it makes for a little bit more of a user-friendly experience, a little bit more of a fluid transition, allowing you to focus in on specific page groups within these comparisons. So with that, let's jump over to the internal linking reporting. This is an existing report, but you now have some new dashboards that you can take a look at for individual metrics. In this case, we're going to have page group comparisons by average in rank, comparisons by average depth level, comparison by average in link, and by average outlink. So it's really nice. Let's say you've been doing some work on your internal linking and you want to monitor how this has been affecting your average in rank. Let's say we've been doing some work on the blog section of the site, so I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the segmentation feature, zero in on the blog section, and see if we can find, let's say, any differences. So in crawl 2, we can say, yes, my average in rank has increased a bit. So this is aligned, let's say, with some of the work that I have been doing. This can also be done for your average depth level. Let's say you're working on bringing some of your pages to a shallower depth. So we would be able to monitor and say, in this case, yes, we do have some changes happening. So let's go ahead and change this to all pages and jump into the new Core Web Vitals report. Within Crawl Over Crawl, you're going to find it under the Performance Dashboards. Actually, same place you would find it under the Crawl report if you have access to it. And we can see here now the distribution and differences between average LCP, average CLS, average TBT, as well as for average speed index, performance score, and what is considered good pages. So you'll be able to look at the differences between crawl 1 and crawl 2 and what's called the gap. So any of these changes percentage-wise, so we can say in this case a little bit more than a 7% increase in what are considered good pages. If we wanted to see only what we're looking at in crawl 1 and crawl 2, we can go ahead and click on any one of these individual metrics and be taken to the Data Explorer to look at them a little bit closer. You also now have page group comparison dashboards by good LCP, by good CLS, and good TBT as well. So let's say again, let's take our blog section of the site and see if any of the work that we've been doing is translating over. And if we look over in Crawl 2, we can now see we have 236 pages that are considered to have good LCP, versus in Crawl 1 we only had 234. And you can do the same again for CLS or even for TBT. For TBT in this case, we're not noticing any changes. Maybe this is something that you're expecting if you haven't made any modifications or corrections. Let's go ahead and change this back to get a closer look at all of the pages. We also are now going to see a breakdown comparison by the 3 available metrics. So what this is letting you know, it's going to show you the number of pages which receive more or less links in the second crawl than in the first. So for LCP, what we're seeing is where pages where LCP has decreased. We're looking at 4 pages in this case. So it would be interesting to take a look at what are those 4 individual pages. For CLS, we're actually seeing no change. And for TBT, where it has decreased, we're seeing 9 pages, but where it has increased, there are 11. So let's say if we wanted, again, to look at the blog section, if this is affecting any of those pages, we can see that there are 2. So we can go ahead and jump in, head over to the Data Explorer. We can take a closer look at what are these 2 pages, the differences between the blocking time, and then we can look specifically at the blocking time, TBT, in Crawl 1 or Crawl 2. So you're ready to analyze your own project within the Crawl Over Crawl report. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know if you have any questions.